if each one of us could introduce ourselves so that we can have this for our AI recording, that would be great. My name is Jamie Thompson. I'm chairman of the Planning Commission.
John
Bryce.
Jeff Kuchar.
Catherine Tarnowski.
Bill Deserve.
Glenn Greenwood, not a Newfields resident. The only one here not.
Thank you. All right. We'll start update on the Muddy River Smokehouse.
Yeah, so we have a full month's meter reading of water usage there. The meter reading is for all activities there. Their average daily metering use is 1,200, a little more than 1,200 gallons per day. So that's way below the design standard for the septic system. Now, they did have a couple of days that, never that exceeded 2,100 gallons, but got much closer to it than the daily average. And of course, this full month is October, so it's not their highest season. I've got to imagine that sometime in the summer. But those levels are really supportive of that septic system not being in danger.
So did that number, that did or didn't include the residents?
It does. That meter is for all water usage on the site.
Well, currently, the residence is not being used as a residence because they've asked permission for that. But does that reflect someone's actually living there? Or are they saying that reflects no one lives there yet? Did we ask that question?
We have been asked that for them to use that residence. By presumption, since we were being asked, was that they were not. I have had testimony that they are.
What that is.
But that testimony was not from the property owners, and I did not ask them that question when I was on site.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
And that'd be a prudent question to ask, frankly. And also, is the use that's taking place currently what they are proposing? In other words, the number of bedrooms or the amount of use in the house, is it at the level that they're asking for? Or is there people living there maybe in part of it, but not all of it yet? Or like what exactly? I think those questions need to be.
If indeed they were using the 4-bedroom residence to its fullest, in almost all instances, it would still be underneath the design standard for the septic system.
But close a couple of times.
Correct.
The monthly reading.
Correct.
Or a low usage month for the restaurant? Or a low usage time period for the business?
Right, a low usage time, that's a much better way to say it. Yeah.
So if they exceed the daily accepted number, approved number, that becomes an issue after day 3, or how does?
That's entirely up to the town. I mean, the exceeding that on a regular basis just is leaving you with the expectation that the septic system is going to fail. Because it's designed for a standard. And if you're exceeding that standard, then you're overloading the septic system and you're asking for failure. Is that 3 days of exceeding it? I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. But if it's a regular thing, that system is absolutely going to fail.
So is there any way the board or the town, whoever, can continue to monitor this, and if and when it does go over, something can be done?
Well, we can request their water metering information for every month. And they have been nothing but cooperative in providing that information. I mean, I have the first week of November, my year is very close to what October was. And I have the last 2 weeks of September. They just installed it, and that really mirrored very closely what was shown in October also.
Yeah, I think like everyone else.
This isn't their busiest time period.
Right, so if we go ahead and say, sure, fill up those 4 bedrooms and have all the activities you want, and then it fails.
I mean, I can verify with them the usage of that home. I can just ask them to tell me whether or not that home is being resided in at its full capacity or at any capacity.
So. Sorry for all the questions, but I'm curious.
No, it's just, these,
So let's assume that we say, sure, you're good to go. And then in June, we notice they are really busy. They're cranking people in and out of there. Do we or the town have the ability to then see what's going on with their usage?
well, you absolutely have the ability to ensure that a business or a residence, for that matter, in town has a functioning septic system. Because a non-functioning septic system is, it's a pollution risk, so it's a public safety issue.
Do we have a precedent that we've used in the past for a business that was in this sort of weird zone where we would ask for a frequency of checking, whether it's every
No.
other month or something built in?
I don't believe so.
Already got a system where we're already doing that.
But I think that the board has made it clear that this is concerning to them. So monitoring that water metering over a year-long period, they've indicated no hesitancy to do that.
So ongoing monitoring without an end date, being an open conversation with them, and then deciding on a frequency that makes sense, or being fully transparent that we are most concerned during their busiest season, commercial business season,
Sure.
that we may ask for more feedback about their meter readings during their busiest season, and have them have a mitigation plan, have them have a backup plan for if they go over, ask them what their plan is. If they go over, what would they do?
Close up and redo the septic. Bring in the porta potties.
You don't want to sit at the table?
I'm gonna ask.
It's not my place to ask.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you condition approval contingent upon if this were to fail, they are not allowed to replace the system until they come back here and get formal approval? Because if my septic system failed at my house, I can just replace it. I don't have to come before you guys to do that. Can you make it approval contingent upon that? Because if it does fail, then obviously it needs to be resized.
Right. I mean, we have granted them conditional approval based upon the septic information. So I think that we could certainly say we intend on monitoring it for the year. And if the metering shows overburden on the septic system, you have to come back to the planning board for us to determine a course of action. Because the water metering could show overburden on the system and still have the system not fail right.
Yeah.
But if we're seeing
Ongoing.
overburden, that would verify the concern that we've expressed to date.
Amy?
Yes.
I still would like to go back to the fact that they came to us to ask for this use of the property, and that we're all presuming that this use that's taking place currently is the full use of what they've asked for. And so I'm not willing to make any sort of commitment or decision or otherwise until we get a straight answer out of Mr. Posnock as to what exactly is happening with the house. Is it occupied fully? Is it partially occupied? That could make a significant difference in the amount of effluent that's going into that system if the house is not being fully utilized.
It absolutely could.
So, and the fact that he is utilizing it currently without having approval from this board is a little bit of an issue in my knowledge.
I have not verified. I've been told that, but I have not verified.
Because he kind of was coming before us and he thought it was like grandfathered in that he could do it because they had done it, even though it had been changed in use. Yeah.
Right, it's different than a 4-bedroom house.
It clearly expressed if it were to be occupied in a residential way, would need to meet these requirements. So he has represented that there has been no occupancy of the house. That is clear to me. So if there's people living in it,
I feel that that was how it was expressed.
that is how it was represented.
That's how it was expressed to me.
And if he has people living in the apartment over the garage, it's using the same setbacks. Is that also getting metered? That's all uses, right? So that includes the existing
Yeah,
permitted residential use of the little apartment.
I mean, we have been clear in stating all residential uses are not permitted.
Oh, I thought that the apartment over the garage was already permitted because that was existing as a,
Their declaration was if they could use the house, they would not use the apartment.
Is correct.
So if they are using both, they are using
oh,
after the board had said that would not.
I'm not suggesting that they're using both. I guess I'm imagining that if they are having people live on that property and they have permission to have people live in the apartment over the garage, then they're going to potentially say they do have people living on the property. And that garage is also tied into the same metering. So we are at least capturing some residential use if anyone's living on the property.
Correct.
So
It is-
I want to ask them to
It
clarify.
is my understanding that the water metering that we are receiving is showing all water use on the property. So if they are presently using, if they are engaging in a residential use on that site also, it is being reflected in the metering information that we're getting.
So, let me review, the whole reason we're talking about septic is because he wanted to use the 4-bedroom apartment.
Correct. Correct.
And the use of that 4-bedroom apartment was contingent upon us reviewing the septic system.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
But to use it instead of the apartment,
Whatever.
not in addition to,
Yeah.
not in addition to, it's to move the one residential use to the house instead of the apartment. Yeah, okay.
And the board is legitimate in being able to say that they have not been provided with any any metering information during what we all consider would be the busy time.
So we're to assume that those numbers that are showing up on the meter are not including anybody living in that apartment.
Well, unless we have a question.
I mean, I am going to ask that question directly tomorrow or Monday. But
Okay.
I like to believe that they're not using it, but that's not what I've been.
I'd like to not assume anything. As a general rule.
Oddly enough, you're better off it's actually being used and it's being reflected in the water, even though it's not allowed.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought that if at least it's showing the residential use that's being used by the apartment over the garage, until they have permission to move the residential use to the house, at least it's capturing some residential use. If that's what's happening, we don't really know until we ask.
So the action item on
I'm
this,
sorry, I feel like I should have asked that when we were out on site, but I did not ask.
Still ask.
so we're just gonna follow up and get
I'm
continue on hearing and then answer the.
committing an email as to whether or not they're using that
Property for any residential use.
in a residential way.
And if they are, how many bedrooms are being used?
Yeah.
I mean, that-
Yeah.
that's one.
I'll ask for a full declaration as to the degree of the residential use.
I heard you use the word for a year. Is there any reason why we have to limit to a year, or would we say ongoingly? Because maybe
We can certainly say,
ongoingly and leave it so that if next year they have a lot of growth or they have a lot of boom in business, we're not like past our time limit of saying we're going to be monitoring this.
I don't think there's no problem.
A build and a limit if we don't need it build.
Any further discussion on Muddy River? Michael, can you join us up here for the rest of the?
You look comfortable there, though.
That's,
That was well done, Jake.
Um, Proposed promulgation 2026.
Yes. So if you look at this very red document in front of you, this is, as I see it, the changes that we have to make to the ADU, the present ADU ordinance in order to comply with what happened with the state legislature this year. Now, I did cleave very closely to the memo that Derek provided the town a couple months ago or a month ago or whatever, to make sure that I was addressing those items that he felt needed to be addressed. There are a couple of things that I put in just because it seems we needed to address them, but for the most part, I did want to make sure we, everything that town council said we should do. Because it was difficult for him to defend if we didn't. So I think if we can just go through it, it's only a page and a half. So the only change in the first three sections are that we're mandated by state law now to allow that ADUs can be in detached structures as well. And so that has been included in both the objective section and in the definition of an accessory dwelling unit.
Glenn, can I just, so our definite structure says it's fixed to the ground. Is there, does the state have another definition of structure that, so if I had a platform next to the property line, you know, a shed or something, is that a detached structure? By our ordinance, it's not fixed to the ground, so it's not a structure.
If it's a garage, if it's, or a shed, that they could legitimately, according to building codes, turn into an ADU.
Even if it was up on, it had, they'd have to put a foundation under it and all of that.
Right. The state very clearly, and it's the last, I've added, it's the last section on this, so we'll get to that. But the state, in their wisdom, has said for existing structures, even if those existing structures don't meet the setback requirements or the maximum building coverage requirements, they can, by right, be turned into ADUs.
But they have to be brought up to code.
They have to be code compliant, but they don't have to be zoning compliant for purposes of setbacks or lot.
So we would need to change our definition of structure.
Why?
Well, because ours says it's got to be fixed. It's fixed to the ground. You know, it's not a platform. It's not.
I don't believe you can build an ADU that isn't fixed to the ground.
Well, but I'm just saying, so could somebody just say, I have a deck that's near the property line? Is that considered a structure?
Yeah, but if they want to turn it into an ADU,
Yeah.
they're basically going to have, they could use the footprint,
They could use,
So if I just
right?
had,
But they'd have to build it to
Yeah.
code, right? They couldn't just like strap on stuff and call it an ADU.
correct.
They'd have to build it to code.
And I would very much encourage the town not to accept a deck as something that could be converted to an ADU, because the law actually references sheds and garages
yeah,
as examples of existing structures that are allowed to not comply with town requirements for setback and
Lot coverage.
lot coverage. And for that reason, if all they had was a deck in a setback, I don't think that meets the sniff test.
in thinking this through, you'd have to meet is 750 square feet too. So somebody would have to have a 750 square foot garage
That's,
or deck.
that's correct.
So
That's correct.
I'm just saying, we've had problems with the word structure before, you know, so just to get that clear.
Yeah.
It would still have to pass building code.
It has to,
You can't just turn a deck into a building.
and I would hope that the town very much takes that tact, because we're being handcuffed by what the state is saying, but the states, the examples they give are very clearly existing structures that will then be converted to ADUs.
I think what Bill's question is, if it is a shed, but it's not attached to the ground, in our definition, it's not considered a structure.
In that instance, that shed's footprint would, I think, be covered by what the state is intending to mandate to towns.
Only because it,
That would have to be a really big shed.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna have to be 750 square feet.
To be
Yeah,
legitimately converted into an ADU.
yeah.
So two issues you're bringing up. One is the shed's foundation and whether that has to already exist as a code compliant foundation for a dwelling
Right.
as opposed to code compliant for a shed. And the other is the language, I think, is that we can't require the ADU to be less than 750 square feet. But I didn't see the language that said it has to be at least 750. I thought I saw that, but then in this new wording that you sent us by email, it said cannot be required to be less than 750 square
Right.
feet.
That,
Which means someone could ask for a 550 square foot
Yes.
in their shed. And potentially their shed has a poured foundation or some silliness, maybe.
right, but there is a required size for dwelling unit in the town. And that's 600 620.
25. So I wonder if the language should be
Yeah.
all in the same place, right? Not required to be less than 750, but at least 25.
620.
25,
So that it-
will not exceed 950, but
Yeah.
not less than 625.
That's,
I was getting
that's
that
a
same
huge
question.
one for us to discuss, that 950.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't got there yet.
Okay.
Though we jumped the gun on this other one.
I just don't want to lose sight of less than 6.
That's perfectly legitimate language to add so that it's all in one place. People won't get.
Different numbers.
Right. Awesome.
Detached structure. I'm processing slowly. So theoretically, if someone has a shed and they want to use the footprint of it and build it fully to code for a dwelling, they could still potentially do. The state says we have to consider that option.
Correct.
So we got to live with that.
Okay, so, moving forward. Pretty much have to meet all of section 4.14.4.1.3. Because the state was adamant that if you don't require aesthetic controls for single family homes, you can't do it for ADUs. So all that section becomes is a statement that for attached ADUs, ingress and egress may be accomplished through a common area that is shared with the main unit, because state law says that that's a may. And then it's really ingress and egress is up to the person to decide how they want to do it. So the next one, the size one, this is one the board needs to talk about, because I have, because it's simpler for my mind, just stated that we're saying the size of accessory apartment shall not exceed 950 square feet, because the state says you can use that parameter, but you don't have to. And our present language uses a 1/3 of the existing structure, which means if you have a 4,000 square foot house, you could have much more than 950 square feet. That's something the board has to be covered.
I think 950.
I feel in one of my towns with an allowance that it can be 50% the size of the gross living area, according to your tax bond, of the size of the existing structure.
What's the pluses and minuses of limiting it?
Keeping accessory dwelling units accessory. Because on a 5,000 square foot house in Kingston, your accessory dwelling unit can be 2,500 square feet.
Okay.
That's not an accessory unit. That's a house. A lot of houses, I would wager right now in Newfields, are not 2,500 square feet. So it's accessory to the structure that's on site, and it's bigger than lots of other homes in town. It's a decision completely, at the whim of the town. I said this 950, but that's not what you guys have said in the past, so you need to talk about it and feel.
So assuming it's a 4,500 square foot house, a 9-foot accessory dwelling,
I mean, 950.
950.
Yep.
I'm not sure why I would care for we're up to 1,500.
That's exactly why this discussion should take place.
In the state requires us to consider what minimum or maximum.
950.
They say you can't make them make it smaller than 750.
Okay.
And they say you can say that they can't exceed 950, but you can make it as you
Leave it
can
alone.
be larger if that's what the town wants to do.
So our 625 then for an accessory dwelling unit is a no-no with respect to the state,
625 is
Oh, just
minimum
less than.
or
not less than.
Should we change our minimum to 750?
Well, no, actually, I think that the state would say, if you allow a regular single-family structure to be 625 square feet,
Okay.
then you better not say that the ADU can't be.
That's why I'm saying, should we up our minimum to 750? So
For a single.
people can't get a.
Change to 625
Right,
and make
right.
it. Oh,
They should both be the same.
I didn't see that coming at all.
So just, then we're not playing around with.
It depends on what was the reason for the 625. A lot of times for communities, the reason for the 625 was in the 60s, a single wide manufactured house was around 625 square feet.
Oh, so that would.
And that was why that number was used. Those structures aren't even made anymore. They don't make single wide manufactured houses in. So there's reason for you to do exactly what you're saying.
I think that would just clear it up. So change, we have
What
to,
you're going to really do is tick off the tiny house.
I was gonna say, you don't want to get,
Because if they're unhappy with 625, and they are, their tiny houses can be 410 or whatever, you will really be ticking them off.
But if we're not making them, if we're setting a range, we're saying we're not making someone have to make it smaller than 750. Doesn't mean they're not allowed to make it less than 750.
No,
we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about,
That's what this says.
Yeah.
well, presently they can't make it more smaller than 625.
right.
Correct.
And all we're saying is, do we basically raise that to 750 to match this? Or do we lower the 750 on this to match the 625?
625.
But we probably should pick one or the other just to be consistent. Because having different numbers in there is gonna open some more problems.
Yeah.
So would there be a grandfather clause?
Anybody who's in like a 650, they could still remain in their 650.
matter.
Yeah. This would only be for new structures going forward.
It would just be, any structure that was under for instance, if the town were to vote to raise the minimum from 6.25 to 750 and somebody lives currently in a 650 square foot home, it doesn't mean that they have to increase the size of their home. Their home can stay at 650.
And they can sell that and the new owner can
Correct.
buy it at 650. They don't have to add another 100 square feet.
Legal non-conforming.
Exactly.
Kind of thinking that we should go down to the 6.25. I'm thinking of a 20 by 30 garage.
Hmm.
With a big room up above. Which 20 by 30 is, what's that, 3-car garage? Yeah. Close. Two, three.
Don't open your
Yeah.
doors.
So I have a question if I can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when the square footage for the dwelling is calculated, just hear me out, this is not convoluted. Is it based on total square footage of the structure, the whole structure? Or if I had a structure with bedrooms and closets and other parts of the house that were not necessarily living space, would you only calculate on the living space within the structure, or would you calculate it based on the overall structure? And how can that be made clear?
I've had this discussion in 2 of my boards. And in those towns that worried about this issue, they made it clear that it is the living area that constitutes the square footage mandated by the ordinance.
So not a bathroom, not a closet.
Oh, no,
That's the area.
closet to living space.
But like,
So then why not call it total square footage of the building?
Right.
rather-
Because what if it has a garage in it?
What would not be considered living space?
And first off, anything that's not heated.
Not conditioned space.
And a lot of times in the
Is that a
instant,
definition that we have in our ordinance?
I don't know if it's in our,
It's in our dwelling zoning.
I'm just trying to minimize the confusion of what's going to happen to the building inspector when someone comes in with a 1,200 square foot building and says, oh, no, it's only 950 square feet. of
right, I mean, that's.
Well, the ceiling, all of that space, all that open area doesn't count anything, but your footprint could be much bigger.
That's it. That's, want to understand what the,
In Brentwood, they say finished heated space used used as living area for the apartment. And that includes
closets.
closets. For that matter, it includes stairwells.
Okay.
To be completely contrarian, the town of Kensington has excluded stairwells. So this is a really,
I guess that's personal to ask the question, like, why wouldn't we just simplify it by saying the square footage of the structure rather than complicated by living space?
I think garages can't be counted.
Does
So,
it,
in our definitions in our zoning,
Yes.
floor area, it describes floor area, so. The sum of the gross horizontal areas of all floors of any building or buildings on a lot measured from the exterior walls, in particular, the floor area shall include in dwellings, any basement space designed to be used for temporary residential purposes, any basement or selling space, in all buildings, interior balconies, mezzanines, and all spaces other than the basement or cellar spaces with structured headroom of at least 7 feet, designed for all year round use. So I assume the all year round use deals with the heating.
So should we reference that in this? That,
we absolutely could.
that should be referenced in that.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was in definitions,
What was it?
Floor area.
floor area,
Floor area, okay. So I would say we reference floor area.
floor area, yeah.
So that
If we said floor area, if we make our decision that the size of ADUs in town are a low at 625 and a high at 950, we say the floor area of the apartment can be between 625 and 950. Or 1,500 if we use the third of the existing structure, however.
And we use the word as opposed to dwelling, why?
No, we would use the ADU. We would use, so that it all matches.
I read that earlier. Why we come?
Yeah, no, we would say the floor area of the ADU.
But that excludes garage space that's not meant to be dwelling space.
Right.
If someone does a garage, barn dominium type of thing where there's 2-car garage and then living space behind it and above it, the garage space doesn't.
Doesn't count.
That's
What
exactly.
if,
If barns have been converted in that way, in Kingston.
So-
The cars go in the front and the ADU is in the back.
what if you have a conditioned garage?
Oh.
Well, it just says conditioned space, the definition of floor area.
Oh, if you have a garage that is.
Heated and
Heated,
cool.
I don't think you
Well,
can.
if you're not living in there, if it's clear that what they're doing is parking cars in it, then you wouldn't.
I'm just thinking how people.
yeah, I know.
Try to
And
get
we
around
come and say, nice try.
Yeah, nice try.
And
Maybe we just need, maybe we,
People find a way to get around whatever we write.
then maybe it needs to say, this does not include garages. Just let's take care of the definition now.
Or this does not include space used as garage.
Or go back to the definition of floor area and say, this does not include.
I don't know that we want to
They
start.
said living space, so it's not, if something's not living in it, it's
Yes.
not gonna be counted.
Yeah.
It's not designed for it.
I don't think we have to worry about that.
It's not like we have thousands of people.
So is there any further thoughts on 950 being the max? Is that good? Should it be a third of the living space of the residents or the 950?
Presently a third.
And we're talking about 2 bedrooms, because it's already a limit, right? That it's built in for not more than 2 bedrooms in an ADU. That's part of the limit.
The law,
Is a 2-bedroom
the
home.
law says that you can't say they have to be 1 bed. You can say they have to be 2 bed, but you don't have to limit it to 2 bedrooms if you don't want to. And some would make the argument that when you approach the parameter of 1,000 square feet, going beyond 2 bedrooms is not unreasonable. But you can limit it to 2 if you want to. That's an allowance that state thinks we're intelligent enough to make for ourselves.
I think the only issue, now that I think this through, with a 4,500 square foot house with a 1,500 square foot ADU, there will be multiple bedrooms. And there could potentially be multiple cars. And we only have to allow for 1 car.
That we
Yeah.
only can require for 1 car. It's nastier than being allowed to allow it. They're telling us. That's it.
Like,
So, I mean, we did the third, but we did the third, it was required to be attached. Right, and that's why you didn't get 1,500 square foot ADUs, because it's really hard to do 1,500 square foot ADUs on an attached dwelling. So I would argue that it totally makes sense for us to look at a lower max, given that we have no ability to prevent detached. So changing it from the third language to something where we think the max should be, I think, is probably recommended here.
I agree. So like, all of Partridge Hill is, 2-acre minimum zoning. So, and I have a full acre that's, I could just put a 1,500 square foot house there. That changes the character of the neighborhood, and there's nothing anybody could do about it. I don't think that's smart.
I gotta tell you, there's nothing we can do. You go to, if you're in Kensington, go down Hoover Drive and you'll see this 900 square foot accessory detached unit. It's a second house on the farm, even though it isn't 1,500 square feet. You look at it and it's like, oh, that's 2 houses on this. Well, that's what the state has just said. It just said every single family zone lot is now a duplex lot or a 2-house lot. And neighborhoods are gonna change. Neighborhoods are gonna change.
And everybody's pissed that they tore down their garage a couple of years ago.
So we're saying 950,
Because now it's 300,000.
I think we need to decide on a maximum. I guess.
I say keep the 950.
I'm in the 950 camp.
I like 950. I have a visual of what that size looks like. And I think that we don't have a lot of control over aesthetics and density, given this situation, other than choosing a maximum size.
Now, am I correct too, that if somebody's gonna go put, let's say, 950, 2-bedroom on their lot, do they have to, I assume, much like I did when I did my in-law apartment, they have to resize their septic?
Yes.
They have,
Separate one.
Okay, I just want to make sure, yep.
Jumping ahead.
Oh, I didn't realize it was there. Okay, I'm sorry.
Water-
I was just thinking about the sizing in the bedrooms and therefore the implication. No problem.
So let's go for the 950.
Yeah.
Devil's advocate on this for 1 second. The ADU that was built a few years ago in the Deer Trees neighborhood, that had to have been close to 1,500.
It directly adding to the house.
So to think of it as an attached ADU, a 1,500 square foot addition isn't as egregious as a 1,500 square foot detached building.
But we can't make different standards for a detached ADU.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that 950 might be really limiting to what is ultimately a really acceptable addition onto a house.
Yeah, it is. I would bet in Newfields that is absolutely true.
You're right. To some extent, the ADU, the way that they're jamming it into the towns, will make that type of ADU harder because every town is looking at this saying, if I have to require detached, I'm gonna put a lower cap on. Because otherwise I'm gonna have 2 houses on every lot. And that's a problem for a lot of towns.
And we still have the zoning board. I would imagine people can still come and request a
Yes.
variance or request some special exception if they have unique circumstances at their property.
It's still,
We want to exceed the cap or whatever the reason is.
they wouldn't do.
It's like they don't have.
We can always change this again at another year.
This becomes a zoning ordinance. It becomes a zoning ordinance with its internal standards. And those are open to variance requests.
Or changeable at another
Oh,
next
yeah,
year.
it's subsequent year.
It'll be really interesting to see if people in town decide not to vote for it. Or whatever, I don't know, but you know, people, it's happened to us many times. They don't understand. When we tried to change the conservation subdivision ordinance to allow for standard
Yeah,
subdivision.
remember, they were all years. They were very upset.
Well, I think that's gonna happen in a bunch of towns in the state where the ADU rules are gonna get voted down. Because people don't realize the state law is requiring it.
I mean, all you can say, going to the public, into the public hearing process and the preemptive discussions before town meeting is, this is state law, so if they don't pass what we proposed, the state law provision is still old. So they can somebody can just come in and do it anyway. It just, in those instances where we've said something different, it would get nullified. That 750 would become the standard, even though we're considering going down to 625. If this failed, then the state preemption at that 750 would be what would hold.
Yep.
So in light of the potential for limiting someone for an addition versus detached, I feel that the 950 number is a good starting point for us to propose. And if the townspeople decide they don't like it and want something different, then I guess we'll know about it.
We also have 3 hearings. This is one of 3.
You
We can actually try to generate some discussion and have people come here and participate in the next couple.
There is no requirement for 3 hearings. You have to have 1 hearing for a zoning amendment. But if you make any substantial changes, you have to have a second that incorporates the changes that we've made. And we've made a couple here already that mean we have to have a second hearing. But at the end of that second hearing, if there are no changes, you're good to go.
So the second hearing is an opportunity for people who care about this topic to show up and have a conversation about
And
it.
have a conversation about it, sure.
How does this restrict addition on an existing house? So, I mean,
If it's not an ADU.
Nothing isn't the intention of being an accessory dwelling unit.
Right.
If you're just putting on a massive family room and 2 more bedrooms, you can absolutely do that. But if you want a kitchen, bathroom,
okay.
and 2 bedrooms and a family room, then you have to.
In a separate entrance?
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. All right, so the 950 is, are we comfortable going forward at 950?
Yeah.
So we're gonna make the minimum be the 625, is that what I'm hearing?
Sure.
And we're gonna make the maximum be 950. I mean, I think that for the town, that makes things less confusing. So I think that's a good change.
And it's gonna be, the floor area,
And we're going to incorporate the phrase floor.
floor area, as referenced in the definition.
Yeah.
Michael, what was that definition you read? Was that our?
It's in your.
Floor area.
It's in our zoning definition.
Zoning definitions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right in like page 3 of the zoning definitions.
In the next section, can we go on to the next section? Or should we?
Yes.
Yep.
In the next section, the only changes are, that we have to take out that it's something that's done by the ZBA, because it no longer is. And then the rest is just to make it clear. What we're saying. But that was part of our old ordinance, the new state requirements allow you to do it. We just have to remove this. And in the next section, we have to go from 4 to 1, so.
Wow.
Because, every couple that lives in an apartment, they have 1 car. It's just absurd. It's absurd.
Not for you.
It's absurd. I mean, who's giving up their second car? I don't, you give it up when you can't drive it. Not because you're moving into an apartment.
When's that? I got an two 89-year-old mothers in my life. They're not giving those cars up. Oh, yeah.
Where do they live?
Where do they drive?
When?
Street, are they?
They shop.
I made my mother stop when she was 89.
They should stop when they can't see over the steering wheel or something like that.
That's when exactly we took her car away. So the next changes are found in 414-419, and it's to get rid of the requirement for the ZBA to take case. And then in what used to be the special criteria for the ZBA, these are all requirements in the state law. So we're not causing any problem. In the first section, where we talk about having to prove adequacy of the septic system, we presently, I'm an idiot for this, because water supply and pollution control really hasn't existed since 1990. So it has to say just the Department of Environmental Services. And the only other change is that we're making it clear there's no ZBA action happening. And at the very end, just evidence must be submitted to the building inspector that all building requirements can be met. This all is a building permit process. That's all it requires.
So back to Mike's question about the septic, is it assumed that that will be part of this review process?
Yeah. Yes.
But no longer before this board, right?
Correct. It never was with us. It was with the ZBA. But now the building inspector is tasked with making sure that the septic system is adequate for the construction of a new ADU. And he's going to be faced with people saying, our septic system is oversized.
Right.
We're going to not use 2 of our bedrooms anymore. And
Only 2 of us here.
it again, and crafting room. that doesn't hold water, and the biggest reason it doesn't is because an ADU requirement isn't just based on bedrooms, it has to incorporate kitchen facilities. And that's an additional demand on the septic system beyond bedrooms.
Another washer dryer.
So you just can't, it just isn't that simple.
That kind of brings up, we should look at building inspectors forms because he's going to have to revise those.
Oh,
To make sure that-
How responsible for ADUs, yeah. And does Larry know this? Has anybody had this discussion with Larry yet? I haven't. I gotta imagine other building inspectors they've all talked together.
We've had multiple discussions between Ken, myself, and Larry, the impact of the ADU, and we're in the process of developing more expansive checklists that include any confusion on his part for gray areas.
Good.
Well, it sounds like this out in here of certified certification from the state engineer.
Yes.
Probably something that if I'm Larry, I'm going to want to have in most cases, because it's pretty hard to say you can put 2 bedrooms.
I think it's every case.
Yeah, because you're putting way too much load in there. You're putting a whole house load in.
You are.
DES is gonna get overwhelmed.
Yeah. They already are.
They're seeing a lot of them now. Yeah.
So we need to make a motion to continue this to next month.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make the motion to continue the public hearing on this to next month.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
These changes. Any opposed?
So other zoning change, boys and multifamily, right?
Multifamily is the We're the folks that the town of Brentwood paid to come up with their new densities. I think I may have told you last month that those densities are 6 and 8, and 8 if you do workforce housing.
Right.
So 8 units per developable acre, which means an acre that has no wetlands. So it's upland soil. For every acre of upland soil, you'll be able to put 6 multifamily dwelling units, or 8 per acre if 2 of those meet the parameters for workforce housing.
And are there any other communities that you work with that have lesser numbers?
No.
Acreage, or is it all very similar?
The Kingston's are a little higher.
Okay.
And they presently have it by bedrooms, and I think we're going to change it to meet Brentwood's, to have the same unit number and not have it be based on bedrooms, but based on number of units. And then the bedroom count will be flexible, and you'll just, in the site plan review, be able to establish that you have septic capacity for the bedrooms that you're permitting.
So we should have a public hearing on those next month, because we're going to be up against the clock.
If the board is comfortable with those numbers, we have it's limited here.
Yeah.
But there are some big parcels that could be developed for multifamily. So if you're comfortable with those numbers, I will draft an ordinance that would allow those numbers in the commercial zone for multifamily structures.
So just to understand, the applicant could just put up a multifamily structure within the commercial zone. It doesn't have to be tied to any sort of commercial activity.
That's correct.
That's correct. The state law says that commercial areas are viable areas for multifamily, because in defense of the state, multifamily activity is a commercial endeavor. Apartment buildings are commercial endeavors.
Yeah.
They're not residential endeavors. People do them to make money. And to commoditize, that's not monetize. Ties the commodity of housing.
I'm just curious, the impact, potentially not necessarily for Newfields, but just in general, where you may end up with developments of multifamily structures, which would strip away the commercial potential for the development of the property.
I think that's absolutely a legitimate concern. Some towns are saying that are taking the tack that multifamily will happen on a second and possibly third floor if you allow third floors in your town. And the first floor would be retail,
Which is typically what,
which is common.
yeah, very common.
With lots of
My view, but
urban
just
areas.
just to build multifamily units for the sake of multifamily units.
To your point, I think, towns like ours with very limited commercial zoning. If apartment complexes take up that commercial space, there'll be very little ability for us to get additional commercial. Versus, let's say, Portsmouth, right? They're almost encouraging apartments to be interlaced with their commercial developments, and it's understandable why, right? You have an apartment building, you have services, restaurants, laundry, whatever it is that serve that apartment building, that's great. But small towns like us with limited commercial, this could squeeze out commercial development opportunities for us over the long haul. But we have no choice.
Well, we could do an ordinance that says just that, that the first floor
Has to be
has to
commercial.
be commercial.
That's, I guess,
I would be all for that.
point of
That's a
why I
good-
was asking questions to
We
understand.
absolutely could say that.
That's a good thing.
And I could bring you language next month that says that.
I was reading somewhere where they were doing like a third of it had to be commercial.
Yeah.
So you could have one building that's commercial and one's all residential.
Oh, you could do it that way.
I mean, so I think
You could do it that way.
you could toss around
So
that.
we could include, I like.
1/3 of the square footage has to be
I'm
commercial.
happy you're saying that now because I'll put that in the model
Well, it
language.
has to be non-residential commercial.
Yeah.
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 Non-residential, yeah.
Yeah,
I just feel like it would be a shame to have our commercial district for what
just
the,
become residential.
yeah, become a bunch of multifamily
I agree.
buildings. I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's a busy area in town. It's not well suited for residential, but it just seems.
Right, that decision's been made for us.
But we want more commercial
More
in
commercial.
town.
It might incentivize.
Encourage a developer to do a project that's going to include some sort of,
Mixed use.
And couldn't you see Sean doing something like that?
maybe.
I could see him doing something like that.
Yeah.
All right, that is exactly the language that I'll bring to you then.
Oh, no, I think it's great. I mean, look at what Chimberg did up at the Dover at the Mills, right? All the first floors on a lot of those are commercial, restaurants, stuff, and it's residential above. I mean, to me, that would be the best of a forced situation.
That's the way you think. So.
Downtown exit.
Yeah,
That's what they
same.
want out.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Yep.
Okay.
All right, that's great feedback because that's what I'll bring you.
But I think I like the idea of the first floor commercial rather than a third of.
Yes,
Is it-
Ton of space.
Well, let's look at both of them.
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
third,
take a look at both.
because you're gonna make it undevelopable too.
Hmm.
Because part of it is you need to go up enough to justify the overall space.
Right, and what is, we,
35.
35, so we're really talking 2 floors.
So
So we're saying 1 floor retail, or, well, one floor commercial, 1 floor
Residential.
residential.
Yeah, so you're restricting it anyway, because it won't be viable.
You don't have a ladder truck.
Flat.
Yeah.
Usually high restrictions are related to your safety equipment. Of course, if a developer wants to do 3 floors, then he can buy us a ladder truck.
And the building.
and the building to put it in.
That's.
Better.
Could they just make it sprinkler
Sure.
Potentially.
and then not need the ladder?
Don't look at me.
They have to.
I know in Waterville, the height restriction is based upon their ladder.
Oh, that's worse. Tons of convenience in that.
So noise is the other one?
Noise, we'd have noise, multifamily and ADU next month. Good.
So noise, you'll bring that information into.
Yeah, but I think I still want to meet with you about this.
Okay.
All right? So I'll get in touch with you.
Right.
All right.
Making progress.
Lighting update,
I'm sorry?
mobile lighting update.
Not a frigging thing.
Why?
Letters went out and,
I have a friggin' thing.
oh, okay.
Glenn,
I know, so
you go home, go to the end of 85 and take a left.
Take the long way.
very short. It's
Go get the gas.
It's about, take the road. By the way, you'll see it before you get there.
I've been on the site. I know that they
It's
did
got
not
great.
move what they said it was going to do.
It doesn't, does it?
It does not. It does not.
Glad you're in agreement.
It does not. But
I'm right there with you.
that doesn't excuse the fact that I haven't done a damn thing about it. I have not done a damn thing about it.
He goes.
Oh, God, you have to have a lot of beef.
Actually, go left, go into the mobile station and just say, this isn't the lighting we allowed. And walk out.
Throw some rocks.
That,
No, because I did that with the owner. I did that with the, she said,
It was.
I'm not the owner and
Oh, I know. I'm just being trouble. I know.
she basically, I tried to come back to the owner and she smacked me back, so.
so
I just did that.
the intention is to draft another letter to tell them that we did, I don't know if we got that far, to say we got your response, we disagree. That letter didn't,
Right, we.
but we have
Our
a
next
response.
response is, I want them to be on site with us at night, so we can tell them what exists there.
Yep.
Is not what we agreed to, it is not what's reflected in the minutes of the meeting.
Right, but in the diagram, the lighting in question that's creating this backlit appearance, like a neon sign, is the string lighting that is in the little channel going around, and it's worded as down lighting.
It is.
Functionally down lighting. So in a conversation on site, that actual page with the diagram,
Yes,
so that it can be pointed out, this string lighting is not down lighting. It doesn't help drivers anywhere under the canopy.
it does.
And that is the only thing that puts them out of compliance, and all they have to do is turn it off. And they would be in compliance. And so I think being that specific would probably be helpful. Having the diagram, because it was part of the minutes of the meeting, we approved it based on the diagram.
The attorney doesn't like it, but I will be very, I will be,
I'll go with you.
well, in the phone call where I'm asking him to come to this, I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
Because he and I aren't agreeing.
Glenn, is this a planning board issue?
Kind of. Until
We
it's a
tell them
select
what,
board.
we tell them what to do, just like developments and all that, but if they don't do what we say.
Then the planning board recommends to the select board and the select board has to enforce.
Right.
This is not an enforcement board.
It's not,
They are.
what we had decided was, let's
Yeah.
get them to the table.
Well, give it a
I
shot,
haven't brought them to the table.
but if they're not, then I think we hand it over to.
I think that you're
That's the next step.
perfectly right on that. But I still want to get them to the table, and
I don't know.
it's the better path to take.
Okay.
Says the person who hasn't brought them to the table.
And they do have great fried chicken.
Who owns the table?
They do.
I've heard that, but I've never,
Pretty good.
it was on Chronicle or something last year.
CIP update.
CIP, I met with both the fire chief and the police chief. And they have quite a project coming forward soon, people. And we went over what I'm looking for from them. We went over the project project submission form that I asked them to use. They were very forthcoming in how they would respond. But I have not talked with the school district, and I need to talk with the school district.
Good luck.
I need to. I mean, it's statutorily, it has to happen, so. I know. I don't say stuff like that, though. It makes me scared. Don't be scared. They're wonderful. It's true. That's true. They are very helpful. They will be more than willing to.
Okay. Review of minutes. Did we get a chance to look through them from last meeting? Any comments, corrections?
Looked good to me. I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any new business to come before the planning?
So. So. This one, actually, yes. If I were to say, want to put specifically a tiny house in my property, would that be allowed within the zoning of the town? If so, why, and if not? If it is smaller, than 625 square feet, why is that allowed?
You might need a variance.
Our dwelling unit minimum is 625 feet.
You just said a word that I think is part of my question. If it's a dwelling, would it not have to conform to what the ordinance requires?
Absolutely.
Nation,
Absolutely.
surface, water.
That is how we qualify dwelling units in town.
So I can't just
To meet the building code.
put a little something out back of my house and call it a tiny home.
And it would, the building inspector, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but the building inspector would have to inspect. And wouldn't they have to get a certificate of occupancy from?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, I think you just say it has to meet our zoning ordinance, which kicks in septic, setbacks, whiz.
I don't know why it wouldn't.
Right. And it's, you know,
I wanted to ask because I wanted to understand if that was something. We seem to have a situation where.
I heard earlier,
so
but there is no state law preempting town responsibility on this issue. It was talked about, but the legislature didn't do anything about it. So what exists is we have our local zoning ordinance that has to be complied.
They could have an ADU. Presumably.
Yes. Yes.
It would have to meet zoning. In fact, it would have to probably.
And we've just said it can't be smaller than 625.
Septic would have to be, right? They need a CO,
Foundation.
yeah,
so what,
everything else that has to.
How about a, down the rabbit hole? How about a trailer?
We talk about
How
that.
about a motorhome type of trailer, a trailerable trailer. And I've got a cell,
Zoning about
I've got a composting toilet. And I've got tanks to supply the water, so I don't have to use water. I've got solar on the top. I don't have to use electricity. Is that legal?
No,
No,
Not as a dwelling.
not as a dwelling, no.
They are right. That is not as it was.
Even if it's 700 square feet?
Most towns, not most, but a lot of towns have an ordinance that say those vehicles can be used for up to 30 days at a residential site. And then past that, a lot of them say the select board can grant one more 30-day period, or some amount of time. But that's how you deal with it. And they're not.
We have people that do that currently in town. They may come here in the summer for a month or
Sure.
two in a camper.
Yep.
And they have their own facilities to exist in the camper, but that it's not a dwelling.
Right.
It's not a structure. It's not,
it's temporary, seasonal, recreational use.
yeah, it's not.
Hobie?
Like to confirm for the record that we do not have an option in town.
That's correct.
The opportunity and to give them an extension, so it's on the record, it's very clear that that is not a viable option for somebody to come in either downstairs or to Larry or to the select board and say, we want to do this. For the record, that is not a viable option in Newfields.
To do what? Stay on notice?
No, this,
I think it's safe to say, Hobie, that from this board's perspective, a dwelling unit that does not comply with the minimums, the septic requirement, the building inspection, and the certificate of occupancy is not allowed.
and are there any alternatives if somebody had to have tiny homes, which means all the appropriate building codes, that is still not acceptable, that doesn't meet the other criteria.
Have to meet all the criteria for dwelling unit.
Just say that for the record to make sure it's reflected on them.
Or get a variance.
Or get a variance.
Yeah.
So what's the process if somebody is doing that? Cease and desist?
He
Cease and desist.
and she have to deal with cease and desist.
Do you want to do a tiny home, John?
No, there's one here in.
Don't, actually.
It's kind of.
He's got enough of-
Nice where this house was tiny home just fell out of the sky and ended up.
Let's just say that a lot of people do things around town without actually talking to the town before they do them.
Yeah.
And
Then they
they'll,
pray for
yeah, then
forgiveness.
they want forgiveness.
Maybe when they talk to the town and they hear what they want to hear, and they just continue to march forward in whatever direction. That's a popular move too.
Yeah.
Is that something that the board wants to look at into the future, accommodating tiny homes and addressing
We're
that?
looking at the tiniest of homes that we're going to allow.
It's called an ADU and there's a 625 square foot minimum.
Comes to the zoning question that, you know, what the density is allowed on the per acre. So, you know, if it's 8, that's one thing. If it's 16, it's another.
I think that this question is going to keep rising to.
There's also a zoning board of adjustment for a reason. And if there are unique circumstances to that lot, maybe there's granite under the ground, maybe the needs of the family are less and they want to make an argument for a variance for something smaller, they can make an argument for it. And the zoning board has the authority to consider whether they meet the criteria. And potentially, if it's truly meets the criteria, then that might be allowed by the zoning board. So it's not like it's impossible, but there has to be a reason for it. And consideration given,
And there's a process.
and a process
Don't just.
has to be followed. Yeah,
Not too bad. No.
they call it a shed.
I'm pretty sure they're just straight out tiny home. I think it's, I don't think there's any variation of.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.